One, two, three, 1, 2, 3.
126, 126.
And welcome back, guys. Today we're going to talk about a very serious subject and something that has been a problem, especially in the US, for many, many years now. Um, and something tragic happened in our home country that is not the usual or not something that really happens often or happens at all. Um,
Yeah, this actually never happened. Besides wars and stuff like that, this is just something that's not, I don't know.
it's not normal. We're going to talk about the epidemic of gun violence and mass shootings that's been happening in the US for many years now, as I said. And we just got done reading some news about a primary school shooting that happened in Serbia that involved a 13-year-old
Yeah.
that took uh, a gun from his
Eight
father's.
students, 8 students' lives and one security guard's life.
Yeah. So, as we said, it's not something that ever happens in Serbia. It was a very shocking thing to see in the Serbian newspaper. So we just wanted to kind of address it here and strictly talk about it in this episode because we think there is a lot of concern when you're a parent when it comes
Yeah,
to gun violence.
like that's affecting children first, as they're usually victims, and that leaves a huge mark on parents. So, when I was reading it, I just thought about, imagine that happening to your kid. I mean, it's just very hard topic to talk about, but it's on the other hand very, very um, important topic to talk about because it's I don't know. I mean, it left everybody speechless. I don't know. So, to give a little bit of I would say perspective on it. Serbia is a country of 7 million people, and it's not that big, and things like this are not usual. Um Regarding violence, you would see some house violence, something smaller, two or three victims at most, and that would be the closest circle of people around or people who just happen to be there. But something like this, like never ever. So, 13-year-old kid had a map, a whole plan of how would he get in the school, where would he go, and he even had a list of targets that he wants to eliminate. Uh, so yeah, he got in and 57 shots uh, and killed 8 uh, children and the security guard and the injured teacher and many more other children. Uh, I don't know uh, if like the worst part of all for me is that he is 14. He's not 14 years of age yet, so he can't be legally uh, prosecuted or anything. Anything can be done. So he can be either kept in this psychological
Ward.
clinic, yeah, or he can be released. His father and mother are also shocked. He uh, his father have a couple of registered. Uh,
And just so people understand how it works, in comparison to the U.S., a in the US, if you're 18, I believe you can own a firearm. You can buy a firearm. In Serbia, you need to be, I believe, at least 21 years of age. You need to go through
And you need a,
numerous background
yeah,
checks. You need to have a
and you have to have
license.
license. Yeah,
Yeah. There's no even concealed carry, I believe, right? You
yeah,
can't even
nope,
carry, yeah. So you
nope,
can't even have a concealed carry on you in public. It is strictly for
prohibited.
hunting. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
prohibited. You can use, I believe, semi-auto rifles for hunting, and that's about it. So in
yeah,
comparison to the US, it is very strictly regulated by the government and how and what you can do with a firearm. There are shooting ranges, and the the boy that did this apparently had some experience because his father would take him to the shooting range, so he was quote unquote trained and knew
yeah,
how to hold his firearms, how to use them. Um, but as Raiko said, the parents are shocked that he would even do something like this, and his father said that he had he had it in a safe. He thought that he did the son didn't have the security code. Obviously, he did, and what happened happened.
yeah. So that's what happened, and I guess that now we can talk a little bit more about just to give it a little scope of how many mass shootings or school-related shootings were there in US, for example? Do you have like a number or do you have a fact of like how many happened this year or in this previous period or
So, just to kind of put it in perspective, the stats for 2022 for the whole year, there were 646 mass shootings in the U.S. Um, that is obviously an absurd number. That is almost two mass shootings a day in United States of America, compared to Canada, which had four.
2023 zero
Yeah, so
and
none
in
this year.
2022 four
Yeah,
with unfortunately 13 casualties.
and then we get to the casualties in the U.S. that died to gun violence. We have uh, we have 44,352, out of which 24,090 are from suicide, or they were ruled a suicide, which is also a very kind of terrifying fact that there's almost like a suicide epidemic in the US. And
Are we
then
talking about 22 or 23?
2022. Yeah, yeah. The
All right.
stats for 2022, because I just think it's important to see how many people are affected by gun violence in just 365 days. Like it is absolutely crazy.
It's insane. I mean,
Yeah.
looking at just the mass shooting, like very big shootings, I think it was a very big number compared to every other country, like somewhere around 300 for
Yeah, yeah.
US.
Yeah, it
And
was
then
great.
first country and behind was Mexico, right? Or
I would need to pull up the stats for other countries. This we're looking at, I believe, strictly for the U.S. And then we also have stats for number of children and number of teens that were affected by these mass shootings. We have uh, 312 children age of 0 to 11 that were killed, and 681 children in that age range that were injured. And then teens from 12 to 17, we have 1,369 that were killed and 3,806 that were injured. So, absolutely terrifying numbers. Uh,
yes,
it is it is sad. It is so concerning, and as parents, this is like your worst nightmare, right? And the perfect example was actually a month and a half ago when uh, my wife received a phone call that uh, the school that our my stepson goes to was put on a lockdown because there was a gun violence threat, right? Numerous amounts of schools in the area were called and threatened, so all of them closed. They had like a almost like a drill that happened. They have their procedures, what they do, but just the sole fact that this has to be a thing is absolutely terrifying. And then also the fact that now they're trying to, not they're trying to, they are doing it. They're putting bulletproof panic rooms in inside of the actual teachers' classrooms. So it's like a pull out. They basically
Yeah,
pull a
pull out wall.
corner. Yeah, it's like a wall that you pull out. It pops up like almost like a tent, and it's bulletproof. And kids and the teacher can go inside to stay safe. Uh, it, it it's such a hard topic to talk about because you
Yeah,
just
so thing that I would like to address most for me is that I don't think it's talked enough about it. I would say that in media it doesn't deserve enough attention because I think it's not very profitable for certain people to stop selling guns because there's probably a lot of money, but I'm not too knowledgeable about that topic. That's how it looks like to me. And the other thing for me, very important, is if I look back at this, what happened in Belgrade, um, that this kid is just uh, not legally um, responsible for his deeds.
yeah, that is definitely an issue, and this might be from the sole fact that uh, we just never thought that something like this would happen. And not to
Yeah.
say that you can't see in the future the legislations that are passed, the laws that are changed. I'm sure that now there's going to be action that's
Of
going to
course,
be
there's gonna be a
taken.
reaction. There's gonna be a reaction on
Yeah,
it, that's
yeah.
for sure. But what is your opinion? How, like a parent, what do you think that obviously a punishment would be?
That's I don't know, honestly. It's if a child is an adult doing a mass shooting, they obviously have something wrong with them. Um, when we say normal human being, uh, there's just something called compassion. There's something called caring for others. There's something called being a member of society and trying to better that society. But there are just some individuals that are either um, they're so unhappy with their life that they want to make other people's lives bad for whatever reason it is. Maybe they
Yeah.
were bullied. Maybe they're not happy with their job. There was a mass shooting not too long ago, probably like 2 weeks ago, about an associate that got fired from a bank, and he was, I believe, 23 or 22, and he took an AR-15, which is a fully automatic rifle, and he just went to the bank and he murdered, I believe, 7 people, and then he shot himself. And it's just it's terrifying to think that there's so many people that have these mental blocks and issues that they get to a point where they do something like that. My
Yeah.
opinion is that there has to be more work that needs to be done with children when they're little, and to make sure that they're mentally in a good place. Because for what we read from the news article about the shooting is that this boy is not going to have any legal action taken against him, but he's going to have a talk with a psychiatrist and a psychologist to see where, like, it, it's not, you're putting a band-aid over something that's already.
It's just, yeah, it's just media. They're just biting. They're just like, trying to make a story out of anything and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say that is something that that's gonna be a huge thing because they're just trying to make a story out of something. For me, I think that more important stuff is I believe that, just the sole fact that that kid planned all of that. He
Yeah.
had a list of children that he wants to murder. I mean, what's going on there. So that needs a lot of attention. And if you ask me, how do you think, like, how this person can get back to society?
I
You know,
I don't know if he ever will be
at
able
age
to.
of thir at age of 13, you go out planned. So that, I mean, you can't say that he was a kid, he was this, he was that. No, I mean, he planned all of that.
Yeah.
So whatever, you know. And for me, the punishment, like, there has to be something has to happen. But it's just uh, my opinion, and we can't turn back time. The worst part of all of it is that innocent people lost their lives, and their families right now left in ruin. And it always reminds me of people that lost their children to these things. So one of my coworkers back home in Serbia uh, talked to me about a couple of times about a parent that actually got very, um I would say, enlightened. His daughter was, how do you say it? Oteta.
Kidnapped?
His daughter was kidnapped and raped for a couple of days, and killed, murdered, and he ended up forgiving that person for the deeds he did. So you know, it's a very hard thing to go over, and it's a very important thing to understand that there is good in people, but this is a huge, huge thing. So uh, I believe that this event is going to have a huge impact on everything that's happening back home, and I'm just hoping that they're not going to, of course, somehow spin it and use it as back home are very, very capable of doing that. So I'm very curious to see how this is gonna turn out and what is gonna happen.
Yeah, in the U.S., there's a big issue with NRA, which is the National Rifle Association. Um, I'm in no way or form an expert on the topic, but it is very blatant and obvious that they lobby for guns, obviously because they
Of
profit
course.
off of it. And there is there's always this debate. I think it's the Second Amendment to bear arms. They cling to it. Is it the Second Amendment? I believe it's the Second Amendment, but
No. Yeah.
the right to bear arms, and they, that worked when you know when this was established in
Well, this was
1700s.
Wild Wild West, right?
Yeah, so when you look at it that way, sure, it made sense, but we live in a society where there's really there's no valid way nor no valid reason for you to have a AR-15 laying around in your house. I'm sorry. If you want to have a handgun for personal protection and have it in a safe, I can understand it, right? And
Yep.
that is fine
Yep.
if you want to protect yourself. If you live in a city, there's a crime rate is really high. Like, look, I get it. You feel safer. You are a stable person. You were never even thinking about using it. Like, there's so many valid reasons to it, but for the most part, automatic rifles, there shouldn't be a thing. They should not be sold
Not.
at a gun shop. Like, I have a gun shop basically 10 minutes away from me that I could walk into and be like, hey, I want to buy a shotgun.
Yep.
Why would I need a
No,
shotgun?
not a
Like,
single, not a single piece of weapon should be sold like that. I mean, if you think about it, I was just today looking at a small pocket knife, and I was thinking, maybe I would need something like that. It's handy to have it next to you if you open boxes, if you're doing something around, doing some work and stuff like that. And then, thing popped in my mind, like, well, I could use that to kill someone, you know?
Yeah.
It's just so crazy that you just can walk anywhere and make a weapon out of anything. But on the other hand, firearm is much more serious, and I believe that there's no need whatsoever to, you know, have a gun anyhow in a free sale.
Yeah, it is absolutely terrifying. And especially when you take a look at it from a perspective, this boy went to to the shooting range with his dad, and his dad probably thought, you know,
Well,
I
maybe he was thinking, if I show him how to handle it and how to be comfortable around it and how to be
it's
uh
safer almost.
yeah, how to be cautious about it, to know that it's very dangerous and not to play with it. It's not a game, and it's a kind of a father and son thing, and maybe he thought in that way.
Yeah, I am sure that he had no ill intent with taking his son to a shooting range. And our friends, actually, our next door neighbors when we were children, um, the father used to go hunting, and I believe he still goes hunting. And we know that he had hunting rifles at the house. That was never a thing. Even in Serbia, you would have the air rifles that they were used to scare off birds from at
Yeah,
farms, and you would never actually shoot the animals. You would like hit the roof, and they would fly away. So it's from very young age, the mentality about guns and the mentality about hunting rifles and all of these things, it is there's never an ill intent behind it, and the culture behind it is very secure in a sense of uh, from my experience, everybody was always very responsible when guns were talked about, when there was an air rifle on the farm, right?
yeah.
It was a
It
completely
was
normal
never a
thing.
thing. Yeah. It was
Yeah,
never a thing to, talk about it openly in a sense of, oh, I have a protection for myself, I'm carrying it. It's more like it always was a thing of, mafia or gangsters or something like that. It
yeah,
was never a
yeah.
thing like, I guess back there in US, it's just like a normal thing. I mean, it gets me back to a time when I was in Savannah, Georgia, and we were basically living on a very highly criminal area, and we were driving by, like it was 12:30. We were driving by a house, and it's a very narrow street. And we're driving by a house, and there's a car with engine on, but empty car. And house is open doors and lights on. And I'm driving by, and I'm like, well, that's weird, And I just move away, park, and it's like, I don't know, 100 meters from there, 150 meters. How much is that in yards? I don't know.
That's basically not even a quarter of a mile. For
Yeah.
perspective,
So no,
yeah,
much,
much.
much less than a quarter of a mile.
So if it's 100 meters,
I would say tenth of a mile.
yeah, it was.
I don't
Regardless, it was
know.
very close.
Yeah.
Two
And
houses down, basically.
park, park the car, getting out of it, packing stuff, and I came back to a car to get something out. And the moment I hear like, I don't know, five, six, maybe even 10 gunshots. And I run in the house, and you see people coming out. And then, in a minute and a half, there's one police car, there's ambulance, there's tape around it and everything. And, tomorrow I find out that there was a guy that killed his, killed his enemy or whatever. So, just passed next to it, and that felt disturbing. And then, it's just a fact that you are living like
You never know who
six,
carries. You
seven
never know.
houses,
Yeah,
6, 7 houses away from what happened. So, and I never had that issue back home. I was never afraid of a gun, you know?
yeah, yeah. It is, and to also touch on that is when we were kids, we would play with BB guns all the time. Like this is something that was so not this. It was normal. I will say it's normal back home because uh, there's no implication that you will have a real gun around you. There's no implication that you will have a automatic rifle like around you. And then I didn't understand when my wife and I, when we started dating, the mention of guns was always very, from her end. We would never call them guns. We would call them like blasters, right? Like a laser blaster or
Hmm.
something like that. And at first I had a really hard time understanding it. Like, why is that her approach? And then I understood. There's such a problem in the US with gun violence that you want to protect your kid from learning
Yeah,
about it as much as you can, even from a very young age. Because when Raiko and I were kids, you know how they say boys will be boys? We would shoot BB guns at each other all the time. And there
yeah,
was no implication of us ever owning a firearm, let alone
yeah,
hurting somebody with a firearm. And here in the US, it's such a terrible uh, 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 not it's not even a balance. It's a terrible approach to everything because of people that are so adamant about owning a gun. Why do they need 20, 25, 30, 50 guns in their household as a hobby? Like, I get
yeah.
it. And you have so many people that play airsoft. I think airsoft is really cool. And for people that don't know, airsofts are basically one-to-one replicas of real weapons that have an orange tip, and they shoot BB pellets. And I think that's totally fine. Like, if you were maybe in the
Yeah,
army, if
yeah.
you were a
You like
marine,
how they, yeah,
and you date, there's some really cool videos of people, putting on full ghillie suits, which are the basically you look like grass and leaves, and they hide, and you basically role playing, right? It's not not to say that, oh, it's cool to pretend you're killing people, but it is a much healthier
it is a
approach.
game. It
Yeah,
is a
and
game.
they
It is
understand that
fun.
it is
And
a game. And then you will have all these people from the NRA that will blame video games. They will blame this or that, but they will never reflect on what the real issue is. The real issue
exactly.
is you have gun manufacturers that are not making enough money from wars. So what do they need to do? They need to sell it to the population, to the regular,
Yeah.
to the regular Joe in the country. And that's, as I said, I wasn't joking when I said it's an epidemic. Like, it's not an overstatement, I don't think. The laws are terrible. And another thing that's a thing is, now in Florida, this mayor, DeSantis, he passed a law where anybody can open carry. This means that if you go to a gas station, there can be 15 people holding a gun, and they say more guns make it safer. Eh, I sure, to some extent, but also
That's like
it's such
dancing
a
on a thin thread, you know?
yeah.
Can go
And
very,
there's a
very
very
quick.
interesting, like, I always look back to it. There's a very interesting episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and Raiko, I will send that over to you, and I will try to link it down below, guys, so you can take a look. And it is and this episode came out like probably 12 years ago, and it talks about how easy it is for some people to get guns. It talks about how dangerous it is, and it's a comedy. It's a basically a, not a sitcom, but it's a comedy TV show. But they bring real life issues into the show, and that's why I love that show. But the episode about guns is just crazy because there's two characters that start off with the mentality of, hey, having more guns on the street, it makes the population safer, and then the other two start off on the side of guns are terrible. I'll show you how easy it is to own a gun, and then by the end of the episode they switch. They basically say, like, the one side says, oh no, this is terrible, we shouldn't do this. The other side says, oh, this, we should do this. And there's so many arguments, obviously, for people that they want to own guns, but at the end of the day, my personal opinion is that there's no valid reason for you to have one. There's no valid
No,
reason
no.
to have a automatic rifle. Period. For
Um,
me.
any kind of rifle. For me, any kind of rifle that can be deadly with a shot, if why would you have that? I
I
mean,
mean,
self-defense, okay, yeah, we can call it on a self-defense, but
but you don't need a
people are
rifle for that. You can have a handgun, you know?
you can have a teaser. You don't
Yeah.
have to kill anyone.
Yeah, I yeah.
You can have a teaser. You can have a pepper spray. There are softer ways of defending yourself.
Yeah.
Go learn kung fu, go learn martial arts. If someone swings, yeah, you would say then he comes with a, I don't know,
A
hammer
knife.
or axe or a knife or whatever. Yeah, well, buy a teaser. He can't come close to you. He will throw a knife at you. If he can't throw a knife and kill you in an instant, he is a fucking ninja. So, you know, I'm just like very very passionate about this, and I was very disturbed. I know that that's not something that's affecting us directly at all, but as parents, that's something totally different that you feel. You feel it on a different way, on a different scale. People always told me when you get your kid, you will see it, blah blah blah. And yes, that is totally different point of view. You are having a totally different perspective and totally different focus in life and priorities. So yeah, I'm very very sad that this happened. I hope that it will never happen again, and that this is just gonna be an
Wake up
just
call.
an exempt, yeah, and a wake-up call, that's for sure.
Yeah. And that also reminds me when you said it doesn't affect us directly. I I just remembered Brenna and I had my wife and I we had a conversation a couple months ago and we were like should we were considering Texas. We always talked about moving to Texas, and then I said, well, I don't know if I want our children to be around. For people that don't know, in Texas, everything is bigger in Texas. Everybody loves guns in Texas, and it's just terrifying. It terrifies me that that's the thing. And we talked about it, and I said, I don't know, if that's the right move. And then what happened, like basically a month and a half later, proved to me that it doesn't matter where you are in the U.S., the guns are going to be everywhere, and it it's just sad as a parent to live in that
Yeah,
fear that you're letting your kid go to school and you need to worry about these things on a daily basis.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I hope that, just as I said, that this is not going to be happening anytime again, anywhere. Unfortunately, we're having a huge issue. That is a job for a democracy, which unfortunately is non-existing in this world. So we don't have a saying. If we would unite and have our voice together, and not talk too much on social networks and be more on our actions outside or making a change. I think we could change something, but as this society is going in this path, I don't know if there's much that we can change.
But you guys can let us know what you think on the topic. Let us know in the comments below. um, Hit us up on our email, fatherlylovepodcast@gmail.com. If you had any suggestions on how you would battle this issue, especially if you're a parent, it would mean a lot to us to read and learn about other points of view from people on this
Yep.
subject. And even if you support gun ownership, like why, if you can give us some actual discussion on it, and maybe we can revisit this topic in a future episode, um, in the near future.
Yep. Thank you very much for your patience on this one, guys. I know it was not the something that's very entertaining, but certainly it was not the goal. Uh, and this talk was very hard for us because this is like our fourth time actually doing a podcast episode, and we got into a situation like this where uh, yeah, a huge thing happened, and we just had our opinion, and we wanted to share with everybody else and hear your voice on it, and just uh, have a discussion on this topic and just address it, because it's very important to be aware of everything, and just be prepared, and kind of, for me, to wrap it up, I would say that it's very important how to prepare your children on this, and maybe even have an open talk on these things with them.
Yeah, definitely it's something that they need to be aware of, from a very young age, and for them to have a healthy grasp on the way that they need to deal with that, the way they need to behave around it. It's just terrifying that we as parents even have to think about it before our
Yeah.
children are adults. It's just the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, the more crushing the reality of it is. But the more discussions we have on the topics, the more we can
Understand and be more aware of what is the
improve the
problem and how
situation.
to address it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and our thoughts are with everybody affected immediately with this, and we hope that this is not going to be something that's going to be happening again anytime soon.
We hope nobody has to live through that. Um, I can't even imagine what your purpose in life would be if you lost your baby. But that's the sad reality we live in. Stay strong, guys. Be cautious about this topic and talk to your children about it so they're aware of it. And we will see you in the next episode with hopefully some more positive um, thoughts and themes. And yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see you
All
all
right.
soon.
Bye bye.
Have a great day.